So let me make sure, yeah, audio is working. Okay, great. So I've got Netflix pulled up here. So if you remember yesterday, if you're in attendance yesterday, I sold call spreads on Netflix and Facebook. And as of right now, they're both at least heading in the right direction. But with the way the market's been lately, I mean, that can change really quickly. So I'm just kind of watching this thing on a 5-minute chart. I rarely look at stuff this small unless I'm just doing something intraday. And right now, what I would like, obviously, is if this starts heading back towards this previous low from yesterday. So, have a good kind of a squeeze firing short here. Has started to break down, but before I, start singing my own praises here, it is just a 5-minute chart, and we're only 2 minutes or 7 minutes, excuse me, into the session today. So let's just take a look at everything else. So Nasdaq actually is gapping up here this morning, which doesn't necessarily bode well for my Facebook or Netflix short. Let's take a look at Apple, Amazon. So Amazon's very similar to Netflix and Facebook. You can see there's a lot of overhead resistance here, right around 1700 or just shy of that. Take a look at the banks. So everything's really kind of coming into the 34 EMA right now. I talked a little bit about this yesterday. It's just that because everything was selling basically, um, it kind of just there were no safe sectors. It was pretty much an unload of everything. That most of the patterns look very similar right now. So we look at XLF. This is the financial ETF. You see, now this is a previous level, so I don't really particularly, the way I learned it at least, was that, you don't want to ever use support as resistance and vice versa. And that's kind of counterintuitive to, the way most support and resistance kind of work, is that if it's one, it can be the other. The way I learned to do Fibonacci support and resistance, you're supposed to kind of rerun it each time. So, we'll just kind of look at that real quick on XLF. So from the high, oops. Okay, there we go. So yeah, so right around 25.21 or 24.85 is where there's resistance on XLF. Excuse me. All right, let's go ahead and look at a few other things here. So, let's see. Let's take a look at Tesla. So one that I wanted to get long yesterday was this one here, Newmont Mining. So it looks like not much has changed since yesterday, except the momentum on this 195-minute chart looks like it's definitely headed lower now. Um, so the reason I kind of liked this was from the perspective of it being the inverse of stock selling, and with my belief that stocks were to continue to sell, anything long metals would be, you know kind of the right exposure. And so this is one where you can see it has a weekly, daily, 195, hourly, 39, and now 5-minute squeeze, all kind of coiling. So, like I said, I wanted to pick up calls on this, and I didn't get filled yesterday. Now I'm just deciding if that's, definitely still a wise move. I mean, what I basically was looking at was it to try to retest um, 40 roughly. So kind of the bottom of this kind of downtrend level. You can see that's where we've, had the high here, swung lower back into it, swung lower, and would be looking for, a retest of that. Now, I did run this already here, you can see, so that's from this low to this high to this low, but there were some swings within that, so you could run it from this low to this high. Now, actually, is this the low? Let's see. 30-30. No, this is. Okay, so we're good. Okay, so that one's pretty close to that one. It will run this swing. And actually, is this the high? 4204. Yeah, okay. Just double checking. So actually, there's, a lot of resistance there at, call it 3550 to 36-ish. And we never actually got up and touched that. So, I mean, that would be something where if this does continue to rally, that would be really the first area where we're kind of testing. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a little, pick up a little bit here on NEM. So I always just like to look at the current IV percentile, and this is showing you basically where it's at now, in comparison to where it's been within a 52-week period. So we're about half as high as we've seen volatility, implied volatility. So this thing is starting to kind of move just a little bit here. So I'm going to go ahead and as I'm looking for the right option to pick out, this thing is starting to run away a bit. That's all right. So I'm going to buy in the money options. I'm trying to decide how far out. Because this move probably, I mean, this took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like about a week to go down. So, I mean, this is going to be a relatively short trade, I think. Now, with that weekly squeeze, I'm trying to decide, do I want to buy, longer dated and some shorter dated? Um, so I'm probably going to go and pick up the February 8, 33 calls and let that order work. Okay. So I have a working order going on that right now. So that is uh, the 33 calls, and what did I say? The February 9th, or excuse me, February 8th expiration. So we'll see if I get filled on that. And let's just kind of take a peek at some of our other stuff here. And Netflix is working out well at the moment. Facebook as well. So, kind of what I expected a little bit. I don't want to jump to conclusions here. It's still, only 15 minutes into the session, but things are starting to kind of pan out the way I'd at least expected. Now, I would like to see a little bit more selling here from Facebook. Have this thing start working back towards around 136, 138 or so. But you know, not a bad start. So let's look at some of these other things like bonds. Bonds is generally a flight to quality product like metals. And you can see that it's down a little bit on the day, but let's just look at this from a daily. So this thing, basically went parabolic and has found support again. So we'll see if bonds try to turn up at some point. So let's look at the 10-year. Same thing. So these two are going to pretty much act, very similar. Let's see here. So I just dropped that in the chat. So I have a working order to buy 2 NIM calls. Give me just a second here. All right, so let's look at gold. Gold's popping a little bit right now. Wow, kind of exploded there in a 5-minute. Makes it look significantly more drastic from that perspective. But yeah, not a bad move in gold. Let's look at silver. They've pretty much mimic each other. A nice move in silver. So, this is looking good for my uh, NIM if I actually get filled on it, which is still working. So I may just go ahead and ante up a bit. I'll let that work. Let's see, give me just a second here. Y'all can admire my so this is, I just moved here to Colorado, and this is Horsetooth Reservoir. All right, so I adjusted my order. I kind of anteed up for NIM, so got those for $1.89. You can kind of leave a working order there. I had them working at $1.85, and that put me down $2. So not a huge deal, but just something. Sometimes, it's as I learned it, don't be a dick for a tick. And sometimes it's important just to say, okay, well, I want in this. I'm willing to, essentially risk $1 or two to get in, and the spread's not too wide on that, so it's not a huge deal. All right, so let's look at a few other things here. Let's look at Bitcoin. I have a buddy who's constantly telling me that, Bitcoin's coming back, but I'm not ready to start putting money in account for crypto just yet. It still trades a little too crazy for me. Not to say that it hasn't always, but yeah, not interested at the moment, so nothing really there. Let's go ahead and check on Netflix. It's looking all right. Facebook. See, and Facebook's already turned around here. So kind of as I said, is you gotta have to watch these, have these pretty sharp moves in both directions. So not ideal, not what I was wanting to see here with Facebook. But just hold on there for a bit. See what the Nasdaq is doing. So it's trying to get something going, it looks like. And what I may end up doing with the Facebook move is if, it just turns out that that looks, basically like it's dead wrong. What I'll end up doing is I may just buy back the short side of the spread and just keep the long calls. So I kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, and that's really one of the nice things about selling options is, or at least, selling spreads is that if you know what you're doing, you can kind of um, adjust the position to, kind of work in your favor. So got about 7 minutes left in the first kind of half hour here. Um, I had some of tech starting to sell off early on, and now we've seen a bit of a rally here. So Apple up about a little over 0.5%. Amazon Amazon is up about tenth, 15th of a percent. So nothing stellar here. So actually, let's look at the VIX. I'm kind of curious to see what volatility is looking like. I mean, it has started to kind of collapse and down just a little bit today. Now, actually, if you look at this from daily or a weekly perspective, so you can see that on this kind of run up here, we came into support, hung out there for a few days, came back through, hang out for a few days under new highs. Now, right now, I mean, we haven't crossed the previous low here, or at least from this bigger downswing. Now the VIX is, I mean, just by nature, obviously it's following volatility, so it's going to act a little crazy. But if you look at it from a weekly chart, I think it probably could fall a bit more. But I don't think we've seen the end of this, kind of volatility yet. It has dried up just a bit here at the beginning of the year, but I don't think it's really going anywhere just yet. So let's look at some stuff in the cannabis market. Wow, CGC. So yeah, up 7.5 today. So this is one that, um, I don't know if you follow the cannabis market at all, but this is one of the more popular ones within the entire kind of sector. Tilray is another. So everything, I mean, in the cannabis market got absolutely just destroyed off its all-time highs. Tilray was 300 and is currently trading at 86.90. And this is really just a move into the mean at this point. So as appetizing as it does look at kind of these lower prices, my thought, at least with CGC, is that it really hasn't found the bottom just yet. Now, this does look pretty good. I mean, if it closes above 30.81, that opens the door to 35, and then potentially something like 38.25. It does have, squeeze firing here on the hourly 39, and a squeeze had fired on 195. So it is picking up a little steam here, big volume on an hourly chart, or 78-minute rather. So, nice move there in CGC, but not really ready to do anything just yet. So let's look at Cron. So Cron is one that they had the investment from Altria, and it had a pretty big reaction to that. Right, let's pull up the scans here, and we'll just kind of go through a few, see if there's anything intraday to look at here. So this one looks pretty interesting to me. So this one looks kind of interesting, MRK here. You've got really this tight consolidation, you can see on the daily and 195, really, I mean, everywhere. And the squeeze starting to kind of coil up here on 39. So that'll keep one on kind of the to watch today. Microsoft having a nice move up, but it's really right into resistance here. And if you look at this from a weekly perspective, you've got all this momentum heading lower on Microsoft. So to me, this is just kind of a move back into the mean before the selling resumes. And honestly, I mean, that's just sort of the bias I have right now is I'm still bearish to the overall market. Um, and right now I'm taking a little heat on Facebook at the moment, but I mean, I think I'm down like less than $20 total on that position. So it's just not really doing anything. As we just looked at, volatility is sort of dried up at the moment. So you're not seeing some of those drastic moves that we had, um, in the previous weeks. So let me just kind of run through everything one more time here before I kind of wrap up for the morning. So the Nasdaq's trying to get something going here at uh, has made all the way up to 6,600 and is just hanging out there right now. And most of tech is, you know, slightly up at the moment. You can see Amazon, at least from 13-minute, it's kind of shifted up, or excuse me, Apple rather. Let's look at Amazon. Amazon's still basically flat on the day, but there are squeezes coiling on 39 in tech. So just something to pay attention to. I haven't looked at Google this morning. So Google is, one of the better performers, at least just comparison in relation to the 34 EMA. I mean, it's corrected, uh, quite a bit more than some of the others have, and it has this daily squeeze, 39-minute squeeze, all kind of firing long at the moment. And if you look at this from a weekly perspective, you'll see that, I mean, this thing could go quite a bit higher, so 1137 before really, finding some resistance. Now, I've got to where I just don't really do follow trend lines too much, but you can see that there's a pretty obvious, kind of downtrend there in Google. Um, you can argue that's kind of it. And we've kind of butted up against that at the moment. So really, I mean, I'm looking at today to be somewhat choppy. Uh, I guess the one kind of move that would be um, I- definitely would be sort of a late rally in the day would be something, I think would kind of catch people off guard. Now, just looking at this again in Google, honestly, let's run just some levels real quick because you could see here on a weekly, it looks like it could be setting up getting ready to set up a right shoulder. And so that would be right around this 618 level. So around 1171 or 1134. So right shoulder, head, or excuse me, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And that would bring it down to something like basically the previous low, just shy of 1,000. So just kind of, let's kind of remember that. Just that if Google continues to kind of run like this, now if we look at it from a daily really quick, you can argue this same kind of pattern here. So shoulder, head, shoulder, and this would be your neckline basically, kind of an ugly head and shoulders. But ultimately, I mean, just something to pay attention to here is if this 1097 holds in Google, you get a pullback all the way to 1050. And if this really does kind of play out like a head and shoulders, price would fall below this previous low. So uh, 977. So anyway, that's kind of what I got for this morning. I will be back on this afternoon at 3:30 Eastern time. So if you're around, please come join us. All right, take care.